Extremists seized back control of the Republican Party's message machineA a week ago. Glenn Youngkin showed his party a new way to win. His triumph in the Virginia governor's race sparked talk of a new GOP surge in the suburbs, of tiptoeing past Donald Trump and of letting 2020 election conspiracies go. But now the party is showing its uglier, and arguably more authentic, face, even as ex-President Trump suffers a rebuke from a court that rejected his bid to keep hundreds of documents related to the U.S. Capitol insurrection secret. An Arizona congressman tweeted a photoshopped anime video of himself slaying liberal Democratic Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of New York. Senator Ted Cruz, a Texas Republican, has reportedly been spitballing about secession. Michigan Representative Fred Upton shared a vile voicemail branding him a traitor and threatening his family after he was one of the handful of Republicans to vote for a bipartisan infrastructure bill to create jobs mending roads, bridges, and airports. And the ex-president himself has taken his incitement and obsessional lies about an election in which he tried to destroy U.S. democracy to new levels of intensity. He has already notified the court that he is appealing the judge's ruling Tuesday night that the current president's decision not to assert privilege over the documents outweighs Trump's position that they should not be handed over.
For all the signs of a newly focused GOP ready to exploit President Joe Biden's struggles against inflation and high gas prices and to court parents dismayed over pandemic school closures, its unhinged wing is again stealing the spotlight. The GOP is again coming across as a party that glorifies violence, denies truth, defies constitutional order, excuses insurrection, fuels conspiracy theories, appeases extremists and trashes democracy in its zeal to grab back power. A week after Youngkin won because he had listened to voter concerns that Democrats failed to hear, the GOP extreme entertainment machine, which seems to exist to drive outrage-fueling content for right-wing media, is humming again. Republic. Paul Gosar of Arizona, one of Trump's most vehement defenders, is at the center of the latest insult to decency, after his social media post about Ocasio-Cortez, which also showed his cartoon figure slashing at a representation of Biden. "It's a cartoon. Relax," Gosar wrote in a graphic on a follow-up tweet. In a later statement, Gosar denied that he had meant violence or harm toward any member of Congress or Biden, claiming the animation was meant to portray a fight over immigration and that the monsters it depicted with the faces of the president and Ocasio-Cortez were supposed to portray the policy monster of open borders. "It is a symbolic cartoon. It is not real life," Gosar said. His statement, however, noticeably referred repeatedly to Mr. Biden and did not use his rightful title of president. As usual, critics of stunning GOP incivility are being accused of lacking a sense of humor or being overly literal. But given America's blood-spattered history of political assassinations and attacks on members of Congress, Gosar's threat against a fellow lawmaker is hardly a joke. And quips about violence are a lot less funny in a nation traumatized by the attack by a pro-Trump mob on Congress that resulted in 4 deaths, saw scores of police officers beaten and sent lawmakers running for their lives. Gosar has said that crowd of criminals was full of peaceful patriots and, like many of his House GOP colleagues, has tried to wipe the history of the worst affront against U.S. political values in generations. A firing offense, as many observers pointed out, Gosar's behavior would likely be a firing offensive in many jobs. Yet it did not cause House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy, who after next year could be called upon to uphold the highest moral and ethical standards of Congress as Speaker, to break his silence. The California Republican has a long record of tolerance for extremism among allies of Trump, whose base he hopes to ride to power in midterm elections next year. Indeed, he was the first top party leader to embrace Trump after the insurrection when political expediency forced him to repudiate his initial criticism of his friend's incitement of violence. The latest eruption from extreme GOP rabble-rousers came after leading Republicans had spent the last few days arguing that Youngkin's success and Biden's troubles pointed to a new path for the party. Nearly a year after Trump left office, the party had hopes of reconnecting with suburban voters alienated by the ex-president. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, who has tolerated Trump for years in the cause of bolstering his own power but nevertheless wants to move forward, also tried to haul his party out of the Trumpian abyss this week. "I think the election will be about the future, not about the past," the Kentucky Republican said, saying the key to the 2022 midterm elections was focusing Americans on the Biden administration's policies. Given underlying historic and political factors, next year's elections are likely to be favorable for Republicans. Drowning out the midterm message, leaders like Scott would much prefer to talk about serious economic problems that are haunting the Democratic White House and the GOP's new opening on education. But Trump's repeated inflammatory attacks on the electoral system and the determination of his extremist acolytes are showing no sign of abating. The ex-president sent out a flurry of statements just on Tuesday, claiming the real insurrection had taken place on Election Day last year, not on January 6. His latest blasts came as some of his aides refused subpoenas issued by the House Select Committee investigating the attack. Their obstructionism raises questions about Congress's constitutional role in assuring checks and balances on executive power for decades to come. And it deepens concerns that if he wins back the White House in a possible 2024 campaign, the ex-president will finish the job of obliterating democracy. As he plays a far more visible role in the midterms than he has during an already active first year out of office, it will become even harder for Republicans to replicate Youngkin's model of deliberately forgetting to mention him. Wyoming Representative Liz Cheney, one of the few House Republicans to tell the truth about Trump's coup attempt on January 6, bemoaned the state of her party on Tuesday. In a speech in New Hampshire, the Wyoming lawmaker, who is facing a primary challenge from pro-Trump forces, lambasted political leaders who sit silent in the face of these false and dangerous claims.
Thank you for watching. Please subscribe.